Blake Shelton has been one of country music's most visible and influential figures for decades. His songs top charts, his face appears on television screens worldwide, and his career seems unstoppable. Yet behind the public accolades lies a series of personal and professional challenges that have rarely been discussed in full. What happens when fame, personal loss, and public scrutiny collide, and how has it shaped the man behind the microphone? Blake Shelton entered the world in 1976, in the small town of Ada, Oklahoma, a place where music was not just entertainment but a part of everyday life. His family had deep roots in music. Both his parents nurtured a love for country and gospel, often filling the home with the sounds of classic artists like Merle Haggard, George Jones, and gospel hymns sung at church. From an early age, Shelton was immersed in this environment, listening closely and mimicking melodies, unknowingly shaping the foundation of his distinctive voice. Music, for him, was both a refuge and a form of expression, allowing him to connect with emotions he could not yet articulate in words. By his teenage years, Shelton began performing locally at fairs, church events, and small venues. These early performances were modest, but they were formative. They taught him the discipline of rehearsing, the patience required to win over an audience, and the confidence to carry himself on stage. He often performed with friends and local musicians, learning not just about singing but about collaboration, timing, and stage presence. These formative years were crucial. They instilled a sense of resilience and work ethic that would follow him throughout his career. Shelton's early environment also exposed him to challenges that were as practical as they were personal. Growing up in a small town, resources were limited, and opportunities for national exposure were few. His family supported him emotionally, but financial constraints meant that pursuing music seriously required creativity and persistence. He saved for his first guitar, borrowed equipment when needed, and relied heavily on the guidance of local mentors who recognized his talent. These mentors, older musicians with experience in the industry, provided not only instruction but also a window into the realities of pursuing a professional music career. Their encouragement helped him navigate the often confusing transition from hobbyist performer to aspiring professional. By the late 1990s, Shelton's persistence paid off as he began to attract attention from industry insiders, building a network that would eventually lead to a recording contract. Yet, these early years were not glamorous. They were filled with long drives to gigs, late-night practices, and the constant negotiation of personal ambition with everyday life. The lessons learned during this period, discipline, resilience, and adaptability, would form the backbone of his later success. Cliffhanger/open loop. Even with talent and growing connections, Shelton faced personal and financial challenges that could have derailed his path. How would he navigate these obstacles and take the next step toward the national stage? The answer would define the pivotal turning points of his emerging career. By the mid-1990s, Blake Shelton had moved from small-town Oklahoma stages to the broader ambitions of Nashville, Tennessee, the heart of country music. After years of local performances and mentorship from established musicians, Shelton caught the attention of industry insiders who recognized the combination of his traditional country tone and modern storytelling. In 1997, he signed his first record deal, a milestone that marked the transition from aspiring performer to professional artist. The move to Nashville, however, brought its own set of challenges. The city's music industry is notoriously competitive, and new artists quickly learn that talent alone is rarely enough. Shelton's debut single made modest waves on the charts, garnering attention primarily from traditional country audiences. While it did not immediately catapult him to stardom, it demonstrated his potential and provided valuable experience in recording studios, promotional tours, and media interviews. Experts note that Shelton's appeal lay in his ability to blend a classic country sensibility, warm, rich vocals with heartfelt storytelling, with contemporary themes that resonated with a younger audience. This duality helped him stand out in a crowded field of emerging artists, positioning him for the breakthroughs that would come in the early 2000s. It was his 2001 album, however, that truly established Blake Shelton as a rising star. Songs from this album received both commercial success and critical praise, validating the years of effort he had invested in his craft. Industry analysts highlight that the album's success was not accidental. Shelton had spent years honing his songwriting, stage presence, and understanding of audience dynamics. Each track reflected personal experience, cultural narratives, and a nuanced grasp of country music traditions, which together created a sound that felt authentic yet accessible. Yet, with success came new pressures. Record labels expected consistent chart-topping hits, and Shelton found himself navigating the complex dynamics of Nashville's music business. Creative disagreements arose over song choices, production styles, and marketing strategies, forcing him to balance artistic integrity with commercial demands. At the same time, his growing public profile meant that his personal life began attracting attention, adding another layer of scrutiny and expectation. Tours, interviews, and media appearances became relentless, requiring careful management of both energy and image. As Blake Shelton's career accelerated, questions emerged about his ability to balance professional success with personal stability. Would he be able to maintain his authentic voice and emotional well-being under the pressures of fame? Or would the demands of the industry and public scrutiny create struggles that were not yet visible to the audience? The next chapter would reveal how these pressures began to shape both his music and his life. By the late 2000s, Blake Shelton had firmly established himself as one of country music's most recognizable figures. Beyond his chart-topping songs, he became known for his candid, humorous personality, frequently appearing on television and in interviews that showcased his charm and relatability. Fans admired him not just for his music but for the way he carried himself, authentic, approachable, and often self-deprecating. Television appearances and media coverage amplified his public persona, turning him into a household name across the United States and beyond. Yet behind the smiles and camera-ready humor, a more complex reality was taking shape. Sources close to Shelton reveal that the pressures of constant visibility brought personal challenges that were often hidden from the public eye. The demands of relentless touring schedules required him to spend months away from family and familiar surroundings, creating strain on personal relationships. Maintaining a balance between career obligations and private life became increasingly difficult, especially as media scrutiny intensified. Every interview, award show appearance, and public event carried the implicit expectation of maintaining a consistent persona, friendly, confident, and entertaining, leaving little room for vulnerability. In addition to these external pressures, Shelton faced health challenges typical of a career defined by late nights, extensive travel, and performance demands. Vocal strain, fatigue, and the cumulative effects of physically demanding schedules added to the mental burden of constant public scrutiny. Industry insiders note that even artists with significant resources can experience periods of stress, anxiety, or emotional strain, and Shelton was no exception. The gap between the confident figure fans saw on stage and the private reality he experienced offstage grew more pronounced with each passing year. Despite these challenges, Shelton's public image remained remarkably stable, a testament to both his professionalism and the support system around him. Managers, colleagues, and close friends helped navigate the pressures of fame, often shielding him from the worst of media intrusion. Yet, the emotional and psychological cost of performing under such expectations cannot be understated. Sources indicate that this period prompted a growing self-awareness for Shelton, forcing him to reflect on what it meant to be both a public figure and an individual with private needs and vulnerabilities. What remained largely unknown to the public was how these ongoing pressures, balancing fame, health, and relationships, would intersect with significant personal events in Shelton's life. Would he be able to withstand these compounded stresses, or would they trigger challenges that could reshape both his career and personal trajectory? The next chapter would reveal the personal heartbreaks that quietly defined these years. Throughout his adult life, Blake Shelton has faced a series of personal losses that have left lasting impressions on both his emotional well-being and professional path. From family health crises to the end of significant romantic relationships, these events unfolded in the public eye, often receiving media coverage that emphasized headlines over emotional depth. While fans saw moments of resilience and charisma, those close to him described periods of profound grief, where Shelton would withdraw to process his emotions privately. Friends and colleagues note that he became more introspective during these times, reflecting a man who was acutely aware of the fragility of life beyond the stage and studio. Family has always played a central role in Shelton's life, and challenges within that circle had a particularly strong impact. Illnesses affecting close relatives demanded emotional energy, while the pressures of his career sometimes limited the time he could devote to caregiving and support. The conflict between professional obligations and personal priorities created an internal tension that required careful navigation. Sources indicate that these experiences were not isolated incidents but recurring themes throughout his career, shaping his approach to decision-making and his understanding of personal resilience. Romantic relationships, too, presented both joy and challenge. High-profile breakups and public attention often amplified personal heartbreak, making it difficult to grieve privately. While the media frequently focused on surface-level drama or speculation, the emotional reality was far more complex. Shelton reportedly leaned on trusted friends, mentors, and family during these periods, seeking counsel and grounding. Music itself became both a coping mechanism and an outlet. Writing and performing allowed him to process emotions in a controlled, expressive manner that resonated with audiences while also serving as personal therapy. The demands of fame compounded these challenges. Every personal setback occurred under public scrutiny, magnifying stress and limiting the privacy necessary for emotional recovery. Industry insiders describe Shelton's resilience as rooted in a combination of self-discipline, supportive relationships, and professional focus. He learned to compartmentalize, balancing the intensity of private grief with the expectations of public performance, a skill that would define his later career. These experiences also cultivated a heightened sense of empathy and emotional intelligence, informing both his interpersonal relationships and his artistic output. As Shelton navigated these periods of heartbreak and loss, questions emerged about how these personal tragedies would influence his professional choices. Would he allow grief to shape his creative direction, or would he develop strategies to maintain stability and growth under constant public attention? The answers to these questions would begin to emerge in the next chapter, as his career entered a period of unprecedented visibility and pressure. By the 2010s, Blake Shelton's career had entered an era defined by both remarkable success and unprecedented visibility. Multiple chart-topping albums, gold and platinum certifications, and prestigious awards positioned him as one of country music's most influential figures. Yet it was his role as a coach on a major television competition show that truly elevated him to a household name beyond the music industry. Millions of viewers tuned in weekly, captivated not only by his expertise, but by his signature humor, charisma, and authenticity. The combination of musical achievement and television prominence created a career peak that few artists in any genre experience. This heightened success, however, came with formidable demands. Industry analysts note that maintaining such prominence required a relentless work ethic. Long recording sessions, promotional tours, televised live performances, and travel between cities created an exhausting schedule. Shelton's responsibilities as a television coach further complicated matters, requiring him to mentor contestants, navigate camera work, and deliver consistent performances, all while managing his ongoing music career. The physical toll of constant travel and late-night schedules was compounded by the emotional strain of maintaining a polished public persona, which often demanded he suppress private concerns in favor of professional expectations. Creative pressures were equally significant. Record labels and production teams expected consistent commercial hits, with little tolerance for experimentation that might risk audience reception. Shelton faced a balancing act, remaining true to the traditional country sound that had defined his career, while also embracing contemporary elements to appeal to a broader demographic. Insider accounts suggest that creative disagreements occasionally arose over song selection, production style, and marketing strategies, forcing Shelton to negotiate compromise without compromising authenticity. Each decision carried the weight of potential impact on both his reputation and commercial performance. Media scrutiny further intensified the pressure. Every interview, red carpet appearance, and televised moment was subject to analysis and commentary, amplifying the stakes of public perception. Personal milestones, relationships, and even casual interactions were reported widely, creating an environment where private decisions often became public narratives. Navigating fame required constant awareness, careful judgment, and, at times, emotional resilience to avoid being overwhelmed by external expectations. While Blake Shelton remained outwardly composed during this period of unparalleled success, questions lingered about the sustainability of such a pace. Could he protect his mental and emotional health under the constant demands of music, television, and public attention? Or would the cumulative pressures leave lasting impacts that could shape the trajectory of both his personal life and career? The next chapter would explore how his relationships and public image intersected with these professional pressures, revealing the human complexities behind the celebrity persona. As Blake Shelton's career reached new heights, his personal relationships increasingly became a focus of public attention. High-profile romances, friendships in the entertainment industry, and family interactions were regularly covered in the media, sometimes amplifying private moments into widely discussed narratives. The scrutiny brought on by fame created a unique tension. The very visibility that fueled his success also complicated his ability to maintain personal boundaries. Maintaining privacy became a recurring challenge, requiring careful management of what was shared publicly and what remained private. Shelton's public persona, known for humor, charisma, and apparent authenticity, often created an additional layer of complexity. Fans admired his approachable demeanor, the ease with which he interacted with colleagues, and the candidness he displayed in interviews. Yet sources close to him indicate that this persona was only part of the story. Behind the laughter and charm, Shelton was mindful of how much personal information he revealed, balancing authenticity with a need for discretion. Navigating this duality required awareness, intentionality, and sometimes restraint, particularly as media narratives could distort or exaggerate even minor personal developments. Romantic relationships, in particular, highlighted the challenges of maintaining both a private life and a public image. Media speculation and tabloid coverage could turn intimate details into public talking points, sometimes creating tension in Shelton's personal life. Interviews suggest that he approached relationships with sincerity, but the pressures of visibility occasionally demanded adjustments to how openly he expressed emotions or shared experiences. Close friends and colleagues note that Shelton developed coping strategies to protect the core of his personal life, relying on trusted confidence and selective communication to navigate public attention without sacrificing personal integrity. Family connections also played a central role in his public and private worlds. While he frequently acknowledged his parents, siblings, and extended family in interviews or social media posts, Shelton carefully maintained boundaries to ensure that personal relationships were not unduly exposed. The media's tendency to focus on high-profile aspects of life sometimes overshadowed the subtler, meaningful moments of connection that shaped his emotional stability and identity. Through these experiences, Shelton learned to balance the demands of fame with the need for personal agency. He became increasingly adept at managing media narratives while retaining control over how he presented himself publicly. His journey illustrates a broader challenge faced by public figures: how to remain authentic without sacrificing privacy, and how to navigate the expectations of a global audience while protecting one's emotional and relational well-being. As Blake Shelton's relationships evolved, the question remained: how much of his public life truly reflected his private self, and to what extent did the pressures of fame shape his personal decisions? The next chapter would examine how Shelton approached reflection, health, and legacy, offering insights into the cumulative impact of career, personal loss, and public scrutiny. As Blake Shelton approached his late 40s, a period of reflection and reassessment became increasingly evident. After decades of a demanding career that included constant touring, recording, television appearances, and media scrutiny, Shelton began to focus more intentionally on long-term health and well-being. Reports from colleagues and close sources indicate that he has prioritized both mental and physical health, incorporating routines designed to manage stress, maintain energy, and preserve his vocal longevity. This focus marks a shift from the relentless pace of earlier years toward a more sustainable and balanced approach to life in the public eye. Shelton's professional choices during this period also reflect a careful alignment with his values. He has become more selective about projects, concentrating on music and television work that resonates personally and creatively rather than pursuing every opportunity available. This strategic approach has allowed him to maintain influence in the industry while protecting personal time and energy. Interviews suggest that this conscious curation of professional commitments is not only practical but also emotionally restorative, offering space for introspection, family, and meaningful engagement outside the demands of public performance. Colleagues observe that Shelton's self-awareness has grown alongside his career achievements. He recognizes the cumulative effects of fame, the weight of public expectation, and the toll of long-term professional exposure. These insights have informed his approach to relationships, media interactions, and creative projects. By reflecting on earlier periods of personal struggle, heartbreak, and professional pressure, Shelton appears to have developed a nuanced understanding of how to navigate life under constant public scrutiny while preserving his mental and emotional equilibrium. His journey offers broader lessons beyond the specifics of his career. Shelton's experience illustrates the universal challenges faced by those in the public eye: sustaining physical health amid demanding schedules, protecting emotional well-being under scrutiny, and adapting creatively while honoring personal values. Fans celebrate his music, performances, and on-screen personality, but the private dimensions of his life, the decisions made in moments of reflection, recovery, and self-care, highlight the human cost of sustained success. They also demonstrate the resilience and adaptability required to continue thriving in an environment that often demands both personal vulnerability and professional composure. Ultimately, Blake Shelton's story raises a broader question. How will the lessons drawn from his personal and professional journey influence not only his own future, but also the evolving understanding of celebrity, health, and public scrutiny? His experiences suggest that even at the height of fame, there is room for reflection, growth, and recalibration. A reminder that the life behind the spotlight is as complex and instructive as the performances seen by millions.